Chain smoke your problems away. Smokepit Fairy Tales Part 4, Chapter 26. Fire at the Discoteque. Thatch jumped first from the pig. His Marines flooded out after him, setting up as good of a perimeter as they could. The passageway was empty besides the pipes in the ceiling and the Cyrillic on the gunmetal gray walls. The pig closed his hatch and sat in place.
First team, take point.
Thatch pointed them toward what he thought was the stern.
Second, you got the rear.
The Marines snaked through the passageways, keeping every inch of what they could see covered with a muzzle. The ship vibrated and shook as other landing craft slammed into it. Thatch tried to reach Duke on the radio too, with no success. Yorrick responded to him.
I hear you.
Is your comm up with company?
No.
Yorrick's muffled voice fuzzed over the comm system. A crackled voice buzzed in.
Say again?
Second squad is aboard. Landing with the maintail.
The voice hummed in and out. Thatch recognized Khan's voice.
Yorrick, what's your location?
It looks like we're close to the engine room. Do you have a map uploaded to your computer?
No.
Me either.
All stations, India 6.
Captain Rodzer called in.
Send in H supports. I'm sending in your missions now, over.
India 6.
Lieutenant Benjamin responded.
India 6, India 1. We don't have schematics. We don't know where we're going.
Thatch heard Khan call the commander. There was gunfire on the radio when she rang in.
India 6. Second squad is making contact. From our board side behind the maintail.
Rounds flew past Thatch's helmet as he kneeled on the deck. His Marines fired back up the passageway, stopping the enemy fire.
McKenzie! Get us the fuck out of this hallway!
Aye,
McKenzie pushed his fire team further into the ship, kicked down a hatch, and cleared an empty compartment.
This room's clear.
Thatch walked over and peered into what looked to be the chief's mess.
I want a defensive position set up here.
The squad poured in and covered the exits. Thatch inspected the room. Mugs and plates half full of chow sat on polymer tables with blue plush seats. The walls were decorated to look like an old wooden ship from Earth with imitation lumber covering the walls and shiny brass knobs and trimming.
Looks like they weren't expecting us either.
Chuck observed.
They're on a different clock than we are.
McKenzie told him.
Watch your damn teams!
Thatch barked at them. He tried to hail the company for instruction, but nothing popped up. His HUD flickered and a fuzzy overlay of the ship glowed in the corner. He manipulated a small knob on his non-firing hand to move the cursor on the screen in his helmet. The file was corrupted and only showed bits and pieces of the ship's schematics. Thatch left it up and forwarded it to his team.
Alright, let's move. We're heading down this passageway to the engine room.
The Marines got up and filed out with their muzzles pointed to their front. The ship's lights dyed black and were reborn in a dim red. The Marines flipped on their night vision. Lance Corporal Stuart led the file. He crept step by step forward through the passageways. When he would come across an open hatch, he would point his rifle towards the door for a fire team to rush in and clear the area. The first hall's rooms were empty, save for a few sets of racks and desks and small offices. Thatch rifled through one of the desks and marked on his map where he found the paperwork. It looked to be mostly administrative files. It was Intel's job to decipher whether or not it was important. They'd pick the ship clean after it was secured. Thatch shoved the files into the desk. It baffled him why paper documents were still used in that day and age. Blam! Blam! Thatch heard 2 gunshots and ran out to the passageway to investigate. Stuart was standing over a Russian officer's body.
He just popped out of the room like he wasn't expecting us.
The Russian was in his uniform, not in a spacesuit.
And we got the jump on these fuckers as much as they did with us.
Thatch smiled.
Good job, Stuart. Alright, keep moving.
After the officers' quarters were cleared, they moved to the next passageway. As soon as Stuart turned to clear the hall, he was hit with a hail of Russian bullets. Before he could hit the floor, PFC Hawk grabbed Stuart's pack and pulled him back into the hall.
Contact!
Fire rained across the intersection, blocking their way. Thatch ran up to Stuart. Blood gushed from holes in his suit's chest.
Corbin!
Thatch pulled a grenade from his rig, screamed,
Frag out!
and tossed it around the corner. There was a pop, and the firing stopped.
First and second, go!
Stockton slid up to Stuart. She ripped open his medical bag and shoved coagulation tubes into the wounds. Stuart spat out blood into the inside of his helmet. McKenzie and Chuck led their team to finish off the Russians in the other hall. There were a few wounded clawing on the ground. The Marines put bullets in them.
God damn it, he's drowning in his own blood!
Stockton pulled off Stuart's helmet and turned him on his side. The bleeding from his chest stopped, but the crimson fluid poured from his mouth. Stockton pulled out her dagger and cut Stuart's suit's neck open to the chest. She ran her hand over his neck and Stuart jerked her off.
Someone help me hold him down!
McKenzie's team came back and pinned Stuart to the deck. Stockton found the spot in Stuart's neck and cut open a small slit in his flesh. She pulled a small surgical tube from her medical bag and slid it into his windpipe. More blood gushed from the tracheotomy.
Fuck!
Stockton punched the ground. Stuart's body calmed down and the blood stopped flowing with his breath. He lay there with his eyes staring at the ceiling. Thatch watched helplessly as his Marines watched Stuart die, but he knew there was still a job to do.
take his ammo and put him in one of the officers' beds.
McKenzie stood in horror, looking at the body.
I got him.
Hawk went to pick up Stuart, but McKenzie stopped him. He tucked Stuart's body into a rack. Thatch had his squad stack up next to the hatch the Russians were defending. The latch was locked. Schneider and Hans started at the top of the hatch with their plasma torches and cut into the metal around the threshold. The ring around the door glowed bright orange. Thatcher and Capulet swung a battering ram into the hatch. The door fell with a thud. Thatch tossed in a flashbang grenade and the squad poured in. 7 Russians writhed on the ground with their hands over their eyes. The Marines knocked them unconscious with their rifles. A number of other Russian sailors fired at them with pistols from across the way. Thatch and Chuck fired and forced them to cover. The room housed the ship's navigational equipment. Screens monitoring radar, thermal, and solar instruments lined the walls. Consoles to operate the ship's communications equipment sat in the center of the room, facing the screens and tables, with charts and maps of the solar system lay in the back. The Russians on the other end popped back up to fire off a few shots, but they weren't careful to aim and only managed to clip Martinez's shoulder.
McKenzie, suppressive fire!
Mackenzie's team opened up over the sailors. Thatch pointed to Capulet.
Right flank, go!
Capulet led his team around the bulky communications equipment to the Russians' backs. They weren't noticed until his team opened into them, leaving them a hulking heap of hamburger and rank insignia. Stockton patched up Martinez's shoulder with synth skin cream and a bandage, then wrapped tape over the cuts in his suit.
You'll be alright. Just make sure to get to medical when we get back to BHR.
Thatch sent a message to the lieutenant that his squad had taken the communications room and ordered the knocked out Russians to be bound and stuffed in lockers marked with their location. Akan punched the side of her helmet where her antenna broadcasted and received.
Oh, it's no use.
There was too much metal under the fantail to get a reliable signal in or out. Her squad was taking cover behind crates and mech repair parts. The Russians had her pinned down. Schechter and Giddel were dead. They didn't even make it out of the landing craft. Dorchester was in there with them, bleeding from a shot to the gut. The crew chief pulled him in and shut the hatch. Arco took a shot to the tricep, but he was good to keep pushing. Akan started to get frustrated. They couldn't get back to the landing craft. Her squad had been pushed back to the corner. The Russians were being meticulous with their fire. They only fired around a second, so they didn't waste ammunition. It also kept the Marines from moving.
If only I could see where they were firing from.
Akan scanned what she could. The crates were secured to the bulkhead. Going around them was out of the question. Up the middle was suicide. A bullet ricocheted off the landing craft's hatch and hit a crate less than a foot away from Akan's head. Slivers tinged on her helmet.
Fuck. Second squad, I'm throwing a frag. First and second fire teams lay down suppressive fire. Third team, we're rushing their position.
The squad acknowledged. She pulled the pin.
Frag out!
She hurled the grenade blindly to the other side of the section. When it popped, the Marines hopped up from around the crates and shot towards the Russians. Akan sprinted around the boxes with a rifle in front of her, third team in tow. The grenade forced the Russians to take cover. When they thought it was safe enough to rear up their heads, Akan was less than 10 feet away from them. She opened fire and sawed the 5 of them down. She put an extra round into each of their heads to make sure they wouldn't get back up. Akan tried to call in her position to the company. Her comms were still jammed. Her HUD beeped, and a hazy map of the ship loaded into her computer.
Oh, at least there's that.
She sifted through the schematics, found her objective, and patched it into her squad.
Let's move.
Akan pushed her squad through a passageway to the next compartment. They breached a hatch and spilled into a berthing area. Russian sailors, caught by surprise, scrambled to grab their weapons and defend their positions. Akan, Lighthouse, and Christchurch mowed them down. Akan gave her squad the hand signal to sweep the area. A Russian screamed and ran at the squad with a dagger in his hand. PFC Irons shot him in the thigh. As he fell, Irons turned his rifle around and struck the Russian's skull with its butt. His head cracked open when he hit the deck and his brain spilled from the hole. They cleared the berthing area and filed down the passageways leading to the belly of the ship. Thatch's HUD pinged, and his mission objective signaled on his map.
First squad, we're heading down to the engine room.
He tried to make out the route in his map. He squinted at the buzzing pixels until he thought he found the way. He sent the information to his squad.
Alright, let's go. Capulet, your team's on point.
Aye, Sergeant.
Capulet's team opened the hatch on the opposite side of the room from where they entered, and the rest of the squad followed them down the passageways. They made their way down through the decks without seeing any enemy sailors or Marines. Thatch pushed to the front of the column, then let them pass so he was in the rear. He moved around the patrol, keeping an eye on his Marines. They descended the ladder wells deeper into the ship. The passageways in the lower deck were tighter, darker, and less accommodating. The red emergency lights were half out. Pipes, hoses, and wires covered the bulkheads, leaving so little space that the Marines had to walk single file. None of them were happy about that. They all imagined getting mowed down by a single ornery machine gunner.
We got a hatch.
Capulet called up to Thatch.
Halt.
Thatch stopped the squad. He made his way up to the front and read the characters painted above the foreboding metal double doors.
This is the torpedo magazine.
Thatch put his hand to the door and turned on his haptic system. It was designed to communicate between spacesuits when the radios have failed. However, in some circumstances, it could be used for weak impromptu sonar.
Hear anything?
Thatch gave his head one shake.
No, but that doesn't mean anything besides there's no one right beside the door.
Thatch grabbed the latch on the hatch's frame and slowly squeaked it up. He drew his pistol with his other hand and eased the door open. The room was lit, a dull lime green. Racks of powder, torpedoes, missiles, and fuel for direct energy weapons stretched back almost 100 yards. Everything was neat and in order. Thatch counted the rows and turned back to the squad.
Alright, 3 Marines per row. Keep your weapons up. It looks like there's a break every 10 feet between the racks. Everybody stay on line and we'll push through this together. Be careful not to shoot any of the ordnance in here.
First squad filled in and got on line to press through. The missiles and bombs weren't armed, but that didn't help Capulet's mind. He thought about a stray round hitting gunpowder and igniting the ship. The image of the compartment igniting in flame and burning the Marines to a crisp flashed in McKenzie's mind. He kept his eyes forward and focused on the line ahead of him where the darkness turned to light. Chuck noticed the capsules for powering the direct energy weapons. He figured if they set them off, death would be instantaneous, and there wasn't anything to worry about. He pushed the thought out of his mind. Stockton slung her rifle and stepped through with her pistol, figuring it would be easier to maneuver with it, or if someone popped out from behind a rack, it'd be easier to turn and shoot. Thatch walked down a row with Stockton and Schneider. He still had his pistol out and pressed the button of his left glove's finger with his thumb to send up his squad's location to the company. They pushed through the magazine without seeing much besides the ordnance on the racks. The way was only bright enough to see for a few meters in front of them. They rolled their feet heel to toe to keep their footsteps silent. A trio of Russian sailors labored over an open torpedo under shelves of machinery and tools at the far end. They had it halfway disassembled next to a pile of parts from other weapons. They were swearing in loud whispers. Thatch saw them and silently ordered the squad to halt. He tried to listen to the Russians' conversations, but couldn't make anything out. He sent a text to McKenzie via their HUDs, asking him if he could hear anything. When McKenzie said no, Thatch screamed at the Russians to freeze. The sailors turned, frozen and shocked to see the Marines that close to them. One of them threw his arm into the torpedo, and the Marines started to shoot. 2 of the Russians fell down with new holes in their torsos. The third one ducked and ran behind the racks. He squeezed out of the hatch to the other room and disappeared. The squad swept up the torpedo the Russians had been working on. On the way up, there was a clink and a rolling sound. Chuck saw the grenade rolling towards them. It registered to him that it wouldn't hurt more than a Marine or 2 where it was, but it had the potential to set off the magazine and take out a good part of the ship. Chuck ran towards the little metal ball, screaming.
Grenade!
He grabbed one of the dead Russian sailors and threw his body on the bomb. Chuck jumped on the Russian's back to hold him down. The grenade threw up Chuck and the dead sailor.
Chuck!
Thatch and Stockton ran towards Chuck's body and kneeled down next to him. Thatch grabbed Chuck's chest rig and pulled on him.
Chuck!
Chuck coughed. The Russian had shielded him.
Son of a bitch!
You alright?
Chuck took a few deep breaths.
Yeah, I just need a minute.
No shrapnel made it through to Chuck. The blast just knocked the wind out of him. Thatch turned to the other squad leaders. They'd set up a perimeter.
Hey, give me an ace report.
He looked back and he and Stockton helped Chuck to his feet.
Fucking A, dude.
Chuck leaned over, resting his hands on his knees. His chest was tight and it hurt to breathe. Stockton rubbed his back.
You sure you're all right?
I will be.
Chuck ripped off his headgear and spat. He coughed up thick globs of mucus and shook his head. He sucked down a mouthful of water out of the hose near his mouth, spit it back into his hands and rubbed it over his face and hair while mumbling curses. He put his mask and helmet back on and cracked his neck.
All right, I'm good.
Are you dizzy?
A little, but I'm fine.
Okay.
Thatch looked towards the hatch the Russians escaped through.
Chuck, your squad stay in the middle. McKenzie, you got the lead.
What were they doing to this?
Capulet asked, looking at the disassembled missiles. Thatch peered into the halls.
I don't know, but it looks like they gutted all these.
Do you think they might be trying to scuttle the ship?
I wouldn't put it past them. Capulet, take your team back to the other side of the storeroom and weld the hatches shut.
Roger.
Capulet disappeared into the darkness with his Marines. Thatch called the lieutenant over the radio.
India 1, Squad 1.
Lieutenant Benjamin's voice scrambled over the comlinks.
Send it.
Hey, we're down in the magazine. There were some guys down here taking apart torpedoes. They seem to still have their guidance systems in the hulls, but it looks like the warheads are missing.
What are you telling me?
I don't know, but maybe we should have EOD on standby.
Great. Let me know if you find anything else. Out.
Capulet's team returned from the far end.
It's sealed.
Alright then, let's move.
Akan stared down the engine room, taking in the layout. She looked over the engines, the cooling system, and thrusters, taking note to remember the fire extinguishers and ventilation systems in case things went south while they were down there. Akan had ordered Lighthouse's team to stack the Russians they'd killed by the door and the rest of her Marines to post up security. Lighthouse reported back to Akan.
We've got sailors coming out of that way, Sergeant.
Sounds good. The rest of the platoon should be down here in a few minutes. Don't shoot them on accident.
Which way are they coming from?
Same we did.
Thatcher's squad made it to the engine room, followed shortly by Yorrick's, who had linked up with Lieutenant Benjamin and Duke.
So, what's left?
Yorrick asked Duke.
For us, just the fuel room and its big fucker.
Do we have any intel on what's in there?
Benjamin shook his head.
Nothing specific. We know it's half of that deck and it's full of liquid hydrogen tanks.
Do we know anything about the tanks themselves? I mean, it would be best not to shoot them, but if we accidentally nick one, are they gonna blow up the ship?
We don't know.
Are we expecting much resistance?
We didn't really run into too many of them.
No, but it's a destroyer, not a troop transport. There's not supposed to be this many people aboard.
Alright, so when are we going?
As soon as you three are ready.
Duke pointed at his squad leaders.
Let's do it.
Yorrick unslung his rifle and rounded up his squad.
Which way?
Akan pointed towards a series of pipes emerging from the engines, which ran into the bulkhead on the far side of the section. The platoon moved to the wall and posted up next to a large metal hatch.
Is this the only way in?
Looks like it.
Can you spell choke point?
Nah, I don't like it either.
No one likes this, but we don't know what that room looks like, and we don't want to cut through the wall and accidentally melt the tank if there's one too close to the bulkhead.
We can set the plasma cutters on low and go in from both sides. As long as we cut away from the fuel lines, we should be alright.
Akan inspected the walls. Benjamin shook his head.
We need to get this done as soon as we can. We need to be out of here and have this ship in tow before the rest of the Russian fleet gets here and screws us.
You're gonna get us fucking killed.
Thatch thought, but said,
Aye, sir.
he ordered First Squad to stack up. The Marines got into position. First Squad squared up at the door. They were to go first, followed by Second Squad on the opposite side of the hatch, and then Third Squad to the rear. McKenzie grabbed the latch on the door. PFC Hawk nodded at him to let him know he was ready. McKenzie pulled down and pushed. The door didn't move. He moved the handle freely, but the door wouldn't budge.
What's the holdup?
Duke barked at McKenzie. McKenzie looked at the threshold.
It's welded shut, Staff Sergeant.
There's someone in there then?
Akan gritted her teeth. Benjamin swore under his breath.
Alright, plan B. Start cutting open the wall.
How stupid's my idea now, dumb shit?
Lighthouse, plasma cutter.
The platoon cut 4 door-sized holes in the bulkhead. The metal stood where it was sliced with glowing orange rings. Marines lined up with battering rams, prepared to knock into the next compartment. On the lieutenant's word, they crashed through the pre-cut holes and poured into the room. Pipes protruding from the deck lined the floor. Mechanical equipment and tools littered the walls. Manholes to the tops of the fuel tanks rose out from the floor around a glass-protected computer room. The far side of the compartment housed a series of silver ladders and a set-back control deck. A squad of Russian sailors screamed at each other while pulling packs up to the deck. The Marines opened fire on them. One of the Russians fell and hit the deck with a thud. The others managed to get inside the control room with their gear. First platoon charged towards the far side. The enemy opened fire and they hit the deck. That slid beside a fuel pump and popped out from cover to fire at them. Rounds ricocheted and punched through the fuel lines. It was okay at first because the Marine suits protected them from hazardous chemicals. But rounds hitting nearby sparked and turned the streams of spewing hydrogen into pillars of flame. The room erupted into a ball of fire.
This is not good.
Capulet leaned out from behind a pipe and squeezed off a few rounds.
Nope.
Stockton put her back to an indent in the wall, trying to get cover. Duke looked around the compartment at his Marines, realizing that they needed to move. He pulled out a couple of smoke grenades and told the platoon to bound up after they popped. He pulled the pins and tossed them in.
Alright, let's go.
Duke jumped over the manhole rise he was taking cover behind and charged the control room with Third Squad in tow. The smoke rose over the far side of the room, and the Marines pushed forward. The Russians' fire stopped momentarily, but the moment the Marines hit the cloud, the fire flared back up. Third Squad was torn to shreds. Duke took a couple of rounds to the gut and hit the deck. Benjamin took 4 rounds to the chest. Kawasaki, Buckminster, and Lipson got their legs turned into hamburger meat. Yorrick's third team all fell dead. Yorrick stopped and then turned back for his Marines and took a round to the shoulder blade. The rest of the platoon dove for cover. They were about 20 yards behind the wounded Marine in the front.
Fuck you!
That shot at the glass the Russians were hiding behind. His rounds didn't break through.
Fuck! Fuck!
He looked at the wounded Marines, screaming in agony on the deck in front of them. The Russians didn't finish the wounded Marines off. They utilized their fire to keep the others pinned down.
Akan! Have your Marines focus all their fire on that window. I'm going in.
Got it.
Akan passed down the word, and her squad opened up at the cyclic rate on the control room. The rounds bounced off the glass, chipping away little bits at a time. Not willing to risk the lives of his Marines, Thatch didn't issue an order for his squad to follow him. He jumped up and charged the wounded Marines by himself. His squad followed him in. Thatch slid and tripped on the blood-pooled floor. He hit the deck with a slam, but without missing a beat, he rolled up, grabbed Benjamin, and threw him on his back. then grabbed Duke by his vest and dragged him forward to the little computer room in the center of the room. He dropped them off and turned to see Capulet and Vickers pulling in the others. McKenzie's team took cover by the room and continued providing suppressing fire. Stockton came running up from behind. A streak of rounds raked the floor around her. Another round bounced off the metal pipes, punching her in the shins just below the knee. It traveled down her leg and left before it got to her foot. She flopped down on the deck with a scream. Stockton clawed her way up, but before she could get a good crawling stride, Akan grabbed her from behind and threw her in the computer room with the others. Stockton's body shook. Her leg felt like it was filled with broken glass. She reached for her medical kit and pulled out the coagulant tubes. She popped off the covers and started sticking them in Duke.
You need to take care of yourself. You're gonna bleed out.
Fuck off, Staff Sergeant.
Stockton patched Duke up as well as she could and moved to the lieutenant. He wasn't conscious, but he was still breathing. She did what she could for him. Akan, Thatch, and Chuck were putting tourniquets on the others when Thatch noticed Stockton. She had just finished with Benjamin. Thatch pulled out a tourniquet and wrapped it around the top of Stockton's leg.
I think I need to start using a different tampon brand.
Stockton tried to joke about the blood gushing out of her wound.
You're gonna be alright, buddy.
Thatch tightened the knot as hard as he could, as Russian bullets snapped into the glass lining the square computer room in the center of the fuel bay. Stockton screamed and punched the deck.
Fuck, that hurts.
You'll be alright. Quit being a pussy.
Fuck you.
Stockton gritted her teeth.
Hey, Thatch, we got a problem.
What?
He jerked around to see Akan looking over a set of monitors.
It looks like they've got a bunch of explosives in there.
Thatch hopped up and looked at the security feed of the Russians up in the control room. They had the warheads from the missiles they had taken apart earlier.
God damn it, they're gonna blow the ship.
Where'd they even get that shit?
They took it out of the ammunition magazine. We got a few of them down there earlier.
That's just fucking great.
Thatch's skin started to itch from the sweat beating under his suit.
How long do you think we have?
Hell if I know.
Thatch yelled for McKenzie over the comms.
Alright, get in here.
McKenzie crouched into the room.
Yes, Sergeant?
You can read Russian better than I can. Go through this computer and figure out a way to dump the fuel into space.
Think that'll stop the fire?
McKenzie asked as he started searching through the files. Thatch pointed to the monitor showing the warheads upstairs.
Oh, fuck.
McKenzie's fingers played the keyboard like a master pianist as he searched through the files and command programs. Thatch and Akan ordered the Marines to cease fire. They were only wasting ammo at that point. Neither them nor the Russians could hit each other where they were.
Okay, I think I found it.
And?
Good news is that they wired in the warheads to explode when the last escape pod jettisons.
Alright.
They're welding the doors up there shut.
Akan informed them as she flipped through the security feeds.
Well, at least they won't be shooting at us anymore.
Thatch took a breath.
What about turning off that fuel?
It's gotta be done manually. The valve is on the other side of that.
He pointed to a corner of the room that was completely engulfed in flames. The pipes in the area were all punctured and spat fire from their holes.
That's just fucking great. What's the deal with the escape pods?
From what it looks like, we may have 10 minutes.
Akan followed the Russian sailor's escape on the camera system.
Do you think that maybe if we shoot the pipes at the top?
Akan dashed out of the room and ran straight for the flames.
Fuck.
He turned back to the half platoon of Marines around him.
Get everyone the fuck out of here now!
He pointed at Chuck.
Call company and tell them the ship's about to explode!
Thatch sprinted after Akan through the fire towards the burning corner of the room. Akan and Thatch ran through the wall of flame. The other side wasn't completely engulfed, but enough hydrogen was burning that the air temperature made its way past their suit's heat shields. Akan looked over the valves in the section.
God damn it, there's a lot more here than I thought.
Pipes from the tanks ran up to a pump in the bulkhead. Each had their own valves.
Start the pump.
Thatch started swinging the valves around and letting the fuel run out. The heat crept to their skin. Thick layers of sweat slimed between their skins and suits. The inside of their masks fogged up. The computers that ran the systems in their suits flashed them an overheating warning in bold red letters and informed them that only their emergency systems were running. They pulled the wheels on the tubes around and let the fuel run out through the pipes.
Thatch, hurry up, my suit's melting!
Akan screamed as she pulled the crank on to start the pump. Pow! A round in one of Thatch's magazines cooked off from the heat.
Fuck! Akan, toss your ammo!
Thatch threw his rifle to the other side of the flame wall, then pulled his magazines out of their pouches and tossed them after it. His glove melted to his last magazine, preventing him from throwing it. He thumbed out the rounds and kicked them away. Akan tossed her entire chest rig in one throw. The polycarbonate glass their visors were made of started to melt, and Akan felt the heat start seeping through. It burned her eyes, and the air she breathed was hot and painful to take in. Thatch twisted open the last valve, pushing the spoke with the magazine that was melted into his glove, and Akan kickstarted the pump, jettisoning the ship's fuel into space.
Everybody, what's up? Thanks for listening to another chapter of Chain Smoking Problems Away. As always, if you don't want to wait for me to read all these to you can just go buy the book. Or, you know, I would say that you could go read the audiobook or listen to the audiobook, but hey, you're listening to it now here on, you know, the YouTube week by week. But it will be on Audible soon. It's supposed to be sometime in the next 10 business days. Then again, I am recording this on Sunday. Maybe by the time this video comes out, you can just go get it on Audible. I don't fucking know. It was supposed to be up at least by Friday, you know, as per, you know, Audible's, I don't know, shtick thing, whatchamacallit. It's not quite in limbo, but, you know, we'll see what's up. Anyway, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. I'd also like to thank everyone over on Patreon who gets these chapters as soon as I'm done with them. And we're on chapter, 3 or 4 of Smokepit Fairy Tales 5 over there. We're rolling away with that. I'd also like to thank my YouTube members who get these videos early, you know, get these chapter shows a little early, you know, as I upload them, and I'm trying to get a little bit better. I am talking today. I'm trying to get a little bit better about getting these up just a little bit earlier. Also, thank you to everyone who's, you know, gone out and bought in the books. And thank you doubly to everyone who's gotten the war chest, which is, you know, well, I guess there's two war chests and a war crate. I know I've talked to you about these a lot. There'll be like a little video with the bloopers about, you know, what goes into that, but, you know, it's the box set of the books. They come in an ammo can, there's stickers, cards, patch, all that stuff. And, you know, I put a pin in the map before they go. Also, my next novel, if I have a copy of it somewhere, 13 Short Stories Down, comes out on Friday. You can pre-order the ebook. Also, thank you to everyone who got a paperback version of it. For some reason, Amazon doesn't like to do paperback pre-orders, so I just got a bunch of author copies for myself and put them on my site, and they all went. So thanks everybody. It means a lot. But yeah, you can pre-order the ebook right now on Amazon, and that does help out with the algorithm. If you're planning on reading it, like, you know, on your Kindle beforehand, just go ahead and get it now. Or I would appreciate it if you just go ahead and get it now. It'll download immediately, and then it'll also, you know, tell Amazon, hey, people are waiting for this book. Let's push it out a little bit further. Helps out with the algorithm. But if you are waiting for the paperback, that will be available on Friday. So thank you all for that. All right, I think that's about it for me here on this end. Hope you guys are having a good week. Hope you're enjoying the story. Things are heating up a little bit. But anyway, best way to support the channel is to, I don't know, go get something from the site. Getting the war chest or, you know, paintings, you know, those all help. And I'm still in the process of getting voices together, both for Smokepit Fairy Tales 5 and some other things that you might be surprised to hear at some point. I don't remember if I've told you guys the other thing I'm doing or not. If I haven't, it'll be a surprise when we get there. If I have, then I already have. We'll see with that. But with all these audiobooks and stuff, the way that they are, we're going mostly off of volunteers right now, you know, like me, my buddies, a couple of y'all are pitching in, you know, for all the voices that are in this. So we're doing most of this on a shoestring budget, but, you know, sometimes there are gaps that need filled and I can't really find anybody for them, so I gotta hire those out, and they're not exactly cheap. So thanks everybody for pitching in. All right, I'm being windbaggy. I will catch you around later. Thanks for tuning in again, and here are your bloopers. Ciao.
Okay, there we go. All right. Sound check. We're checking the sound. We're checking to make sure that the sound is sound all around. Oh, God! The whole system is tipping. Oh, that's going to be a horrible sound check. Oh, jeez. Oh, God. Oh, willikers of golly. Ah! All right. Yeah, no, this, you just get right into the fires of combat. To be baptized in the crucibles of combat. I can't remember what he says in Edge of Tomorrow. Chain smoke your problems away. Smokepit Fairy Tales. Duh. Hell of a good start. Yeah, I almost said chapter 26.
Testing. Test that mic, motherfucker.
Smokepit Fairy Tales, book 26, motherfuckers. You all thought there was gonna be 12 of these? You're not even halfway there! The Marines sneaked through the passageways, keeping every inch of... Snaked! Fucked up. Died on the word snake. I think my reaction was appropriate.
Okay, I appreciate I've sent you like multiple copies of chapter 26. But I think that I need to do the whole thing just a bit more, like I'm going to do it kind of stood up, moving around a bit so that it sounds a bit more out of breath, so that you've at least got options, because I realised that Ocon is running, firing, shooting, ducking, moving, doing all the things that basically I don't do because I just sit. And occasionally I stand. So what I'm going to do is I'm sort of going to move about a bit so that I'm a bit more breathy. I'm a bit more like it sounds like I've been moving, to add that extra element of kind of physical sort of movement into the idea of the sound. So that's what this is. Okay. Fire at the Discoteque, chapter 27. I'm going to start with a little jog. Okay. Mine is...
And I said the wrong word. Like an asshole. Okay. Narrative decision. No, not narrative decision. Somebody narrating a book and forgetting how to talk. Forwarded it. I said, come on for Gas. I said, come on for Gas. Everybody to the limit. The cheat is to the limit.
This is Yorrick, chapter 26. Fire at the Discoteque.
That is true. Yeah, no, the Ukrainians did sink a Russian ship. It was not touching land. It is now. But, you know, the underkind. She ran her hand over his neck and Stuart jerked her off. I'm sorry. It's Stockton we're talking about here. I'm like, she's just trying to get one last handy from Stuart. Wouldn't put it past her. Alright. Oh, you're fucking kidding me. Thatcher's not Thatch. When it popped, the Marines hopped up from behind the crates. She shifted through the schema.
India 6. Second squad has made contact on the starboard side behind...
A Russian screamed and ran at the squad. He was running to them. I have a dagger, look! Capulet's team opened the hatch at the opposite side of the room, where they entered, and the rest of the... He thought about a stray round, hitting a gunpowder. And one gunpowder. A gunpowder. I would like a toast, please. Yes, I would like a sex, please.
The first few takes of this were very calm, and then I reread it and realised you was in the middle of a firefight, so we're going to go again. Right, okay.
This is a ghost gun. Dispenses with 30-round magazine clip in half a second. You and your team had a good message when you came up on the stage. And then they let you talk about guns on stage. What the fuck were you thinking? Like, what were your handlers thinking? You can't just get up and ad-lib about guns if you don't know shit about guns. No, exactly. I'm like, dude, no, your message is flat and inane beyond belief. Like, no, you got nothing. Can't vote for you now.
Oh.
Back to a con.
Chapter 26. Fire at the Discoteque. Disco.
Fuck, where was I? Section? The Marine got into position. First squad squared up with the door. Yeah, Marines? Okay. I'm like, was one guy doing something? I'll know when I get further on in the sentence and paragraph, I guess. Yeah. The platoon cut 4 door-sized holes in the bucket. Bucket. Right in the bucket head!
I'm gonna then skip the next bit, because that's more of a conversation. And now I'm going to go to the bit where the Marines charge and back to this kind of energetic... Okay. Oh my God. Got it.
It was okay at first because Marines like this stupid shit. Akan passed down the word and her squad opened up at a cyclic. Because that means you've heard it from more Marines and that's right enough to me, yeah. I think it's cyclical, but then it's cyclic. But cycling is cyclical.
My apologies.
And I know you said it makes it worse if more Marines say it that way, but more Marines are going to be reading your book and they're going to think it's right. I'm pandering, Trip, to other people with favorite flavors of Crayola. It would be who of you. Listeners, it is who of you. Or at least it would be who of you. To simply accept, cyclic, you fuck.
Do you think we might be... Did
I say the, Benjamin? That's taught in the night. Taught in the night. They pulled the wheels. On the tubes.
Runs into the fire. And now it's, everything's burning. Fuck.
Akan screamed as she pulled the crank to step back.
Good news is that they
Akan screamed as she pulled the crank to start the pump. Because of the burning.
Good news is that they wired in the warheads to explode when the...
Akan screamed as she pulled the crank on the... Oh my god. As she pulled the crank on to start the pump.
Hurry up, my suit's melting! Oh my god, I'm exhausted.